Hi guys, it's Meg Ray, and in this time lapse I'm going to be building a very large Griffin organic. This may be the largest build I have ever done, and by that I mean largest in area. So without further ado, let's roll that digital tape. For the atmosphere of this build, I wanted it to be inside a mountain range. So I started with the center mountain which the Griffin will be resting on. It started off pretty small, but I wanted to make sure I had plenty of room for a nice detailed Griffin, which is why it ended up being so large. Once I had the general size of the rock, I can start creating the Griffin itself. I tried to create a basic wireframe by hand, but that quickly grew a little more challenging than I was anticipating, so then I ended up using a sphere brush. Once I had the general proportions laid out, I started filling in that shape and creating all of the muscles and the shape of the Griffin itself. I still need to fine-tune shapes around the entire body, but now I can start adding in the head and other finer details, such as the talons and the tail in the back. Next, I needed to add the eagle wings, and I never had built them before, so this was a complete experiment on my part. I started out with some basic curves and filled it in by hand to get the rough shape. Next, I needed to work on some feathers so it wasn't just a flat wing, and I built all of those individually by hand. It looks a little bit sloppy, but considering this was my first attempt at this, I don't think it looks too bad. Once I was mostly satisfied with the wing, I went ahead and copied it to the other side. But now I need to go to the head and add feathers there as well. The overall shape is basically done now, so we can start with the coloring. After I added all of the browns to the wings and the body, I did need to go back and add some extra feather textures to the front legs. Then I can finish all the other colors of the beak and the talons, and a little tuft on the end of the tail. Now, like I said before, this was my first attempt at these wings, and after looking at it over and over, I realized it wasn't right the first time. So I went back and added longer, larger feathers, trying to make the wings look more realistic. Once the colors are placed, adding on to the actual shape is a lot harder to do. Thankfully, this was all I had to add, so it wasn't too much of a problem. And now that the Griffin is basically done, I can start with some surrounding terrain, and this process was definitely a lot faster than building the Griffin itself. Just adding more giant rocks like the first one we made, only this time I'm going to make them very, very pointy, more for a stylized look than anything else. I did add more mountains than this, but I wasn't able to capture all of it as the replay mod was acting very glitchy when I tried to render it. But once the mountains were finished, I started adding colors. Using a darker gray color, I created cracks all around the mountains, then overlaid the peaks with snow. And once I had that in place, I was able to mix in extra grays for texture. Now I have the surrounding mountains done, one more thing I'm going to add is some clouds to make it look like you're higher up in the mountains. You'll see some of the chunks are a little bit glitchy, and this is again due to the replay mod having trouble rendering at this distance. Once I lightened up those clouds, this build is pretty much finished. So now, as best we can, let's get a look at the final product.